Good evening, and once again, welcome to another edition of the Shadow Gallery. I am, as always, your host, James Donnelly, and it's Monday night, so y'all know what that means now, and that means it's time for new comics, bitches! So, since there's no real new news to get caught up on this week, at least doesn't seem to be, anyway. I don't know. Pretty sure that we talked about the whole. Did we talk about the whole DC thing about how Josh Fialkoff left the Lantern book? I think we did. Anyway, if we didn't, then that's okay, because you know about it already. So let's move on, shall we? Let's get to books, because there are a lot of them to get through this week. So we will start with where we normally start, which is with Marvel. And we're going to start with Indestructible Hulk, number 5. So basically what we have here is that in the cliffhanger of the previous issue wasn't that strong, that we had Hulk basically kind of falling deeper and deeper into the abyss of the sea, and getting really crushed down there. And well, he of course is saved by the kind of Lemurian rebels, if you will, to those who are fighting against Tuma's oppression, or I can't really remember exactly what. I mean, we just know that they're fighting a Tuma, and that's all that really matters when it comes right down to it. And it turns out that Hulk has an admirer, and a beautiful Lemurian woman named Mara. But when, of course, Banner awakes, she's not too thrilled with the idea of Bruce Banner. She wants the big green guy back. So, which is fun in and of itself. And it reminded me of, I don't know how many of you might have read the 5-issue Defenders miniseries that came out, I don't know, back in like 05 or 06, something like that, where it was Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, the team that brought us the... sorry, there's just a really weird noise out there. That brought us the... Justice League International. I mean, it was like a really fun take on the Defenders, like the Hulk and Doctor Strange, and it was really cool. If you haven't read it, I'd check it out. But it has this this scene of I can't remember what her name is, but it's Dormammu's sister, kind of breaking in the Hulk like a pony, if you will, and it's just. I always kind of think it's fun when there is a female character that is sexually attracted to the Hulk. But, anyway. But ultimately we have here Hulk versus the forces of Atuma. And of course it is by, because we have Mara, who is so kind of repulsed by the idea of Bruce Banner, that he's just one of the pinklings. He's just a weak pinkling, that he, in order to get hulked out, he actually lays a kiss on her, and she, rears back, and just we have this great panel of, basically her about to punch him in the face, and because he knows that that's what's going to change him. So then we get this huge sea beast that, digests things for 1 billion years and whatever. I mean, it's just, and, we have, Tuma trying to get his hands on this, basically this this horrible weapon that can be used to disintegrate just about everything. It's like it's like a super powered acid, and it will not only annihilate everything below, but will also really annihilate kind of everything above. So this is a real, this is kind of a game changer for the Lemurians, or at least Attuma and Lemurians. And, of course, when all is said and done, Attuma is defeated. Not really giving that much away here, because this is kind of the end of this arc, if you will. And we have Bruce Banner kind of leaving again to the surface world with a little bit of sunken treasure, if you will. This is obviously it's not the kind of Wade book that we're used to, in the sense that it doesn't really have a whole lot of substance to it, because obviously with the work that Mark Waid is doing on Daredevil, we're used to seeing a Mark Waid that can easily mix character and plot and action and humor and humanity and emotion. It's just but this book is a Hulk book. It's kind of hard to contain that, because one of the things that Wade did so well with Daredevil is kind of what he's doing here with the Hulk, is that with the previous Hulk series that was done by Jason Aaron, you had, it was very kind of, it was very serious, and it was very monstrous, and, that was a little, one of the reasons I kind of stopped reading that book is that it was just kind of so overwrought. It's like everything that was going on was like, it was so horrifying and so monstrous and so terrible. And for Wade, again, like with Daredevil, kind of switching gears, he took Daredevil from kind of the, just overwhelming depression that book was. I mean, it was great. With the work that obviously that Bendis and Brubaker, and of course, stretching back to Miller and Nocenti, people like that, it's always been, kind of the burden of the Catholic guilt and everything like that, and everything just goes horribly wrong in Matt's life. And he took that and he kind of said, well, let's lighten things up a little bit. Let's take it back to, kind of the old days of the Scarlet Swashbuckler. Well, here we're getting kind of the same thing, is that Wade is basically taking, our Jolly Green Giant, if you will, and making him a little bit more jolly. This is just a fun issue. It was really entertaining. I mean, it was just, I just had a lot of fun reading it. It didn't really leave me with anything other than, these moments that I thought were really big fun, like, Hulk, Attuma bragging about how powerful this, the sea creature is, and how the Hulk is obviously suffering a terrible, terrible death. And of course, then you see the hands, Hulk's hands, fighting his way out of this beast's belly, and then eventually the monster spits him out. And it's just, it's just that kind of fun energy that he's brought to a Hulk title. And that's a really good thing, I think. And it's really kind of, I think that it's really, for the first time, really has kind of solidified that particular mission statement for this book, in getting a Hulk book that can be fun. And of course, Leinil Yu, I think, has done a better job than he has in some of the past issues here. But man, I can't wait to see Walt Simonson come on board this book, because that's kind of like a meeting of a couple of, not old school, but just these are the kind of people that kind of came up in the same kind of generation of kind of 80s and 90s comic book storytelling. And, just seeing these two team up just seems like a really, really solid creative team. So I can't wait for that. And I'd be interested to see the character of Mara, whatever we want to call her, at some point in the future, because she's fun. So again, I mean, this is nothing to, this is not great literature here. This is just a fun, entertaining book, and it's a 4 out of 5. I thought it was very solid, and it was just really fun. So Avengers number 8. Man, it's the rate that some of these Marvel Now titles are being cranked out. It's a wonder that some of these writers aren't having like heart attacks every week. I mean, we'll be dealing with a couple of those in this segment here. This is the first of them, and that is now we have basically with in the Avengers here we have the character of Kevin Connor, who is the young man that was the sole survivor of the kind of school decimation that happened in the previous issue. That I was mad that they didn't really deal with. Well, they deal with that a little bit here, and this is the young man that is now going to be Starbrand, who is, because this is basically, again, this is, Jonathan Hickman bringing the new universe into the Marvel 616. So, because they had always, existed very, very separately. So, whether or not he'll be bringing back some of those other characters. I mean, it seems more that he'll just be focusing on the more science, outer spacey based characters like Night Mask and Starbrand here, and Connor is the one who gets selected with the brand, and he's sort of is kind of. He's totally not understanding what's going on, and all the Avengers are there trying to kind of help him out, and then he's looking around him and he's seeing all the destruction, and he's wondering if he caused it, and that's when he starts to kind of freak out and then power up. And here's of course where the fight starts, because Hulk, Banner snaps his fingers, turns into Hulk, and starts charging at Kevin Connor. And of course, I mean, and Kevin Connor, being as powerful as he is, has really no trouble laying a good number of these, a lot of the heavy hitters like Hulk and Thor. He gets slammed with Mjolnir at one point, and he says, "I barely felt a thing." It's like, so we get a sense of how powerful this dude is. But then, once it really seems like, well, that they're in a bad way here, is when Night Mask and Captain Universe intervene. And basically, Captain Universe opens up kind of a portal in which he can take, where Night Mask can take Starbrand into and show them, the makers, and show them, kind of the, if you will, kind of the engineers of the universe, however you want to call it, whatever you want to refer to it as, and to kind of give, Starbrand an idea of his birthright, or his, I guess his heritage, if you will. And this is and when Night Mask takes him away, he says that he's going to take him home. And it's not quite to Starbrand's home or Connor's home, but more to Night Mask's home, the place that he was born, which of course is on Mars. And guess who's there? So we are back to the beginning here again with the the white event seems to not really sputter out here, but it takes kind of a back seat to them, having this kind of big, kind of fight issue, and then having, this moment where, Captain Universe, can really step in and kind of start to explain how how the machine is broken, and even, Night Mask goes on to, talk about that, and how, what exactly the the duties of a Starbrand are. So to go back to Ex Nihilo and to see maybe what he's cooking up next is something of, it's a very interesting kind of pseudo cliffhanger, because we are understanding that ex nihilo is obviously a threat, but and now that we don't know how exactly he's going to control or try to kind of mold Kevin into maybe one of his kind of pawns, if you will, but it's a very interesting way to go. So one other thing, again, we have Hickman exploring a lot of big ideas here, and does, of course, have some good emotional content here in this issue that we did miss a lot from the last very kind of clinical issue, as I said. And we get this, this cool battle, this kind of nice cliffhanger, and Dustin Weaver on art doing a really good job. It's, all in all, it's a much more solid issue than the previous issue. It's more well-rounded, and we do get a sense of really kind of the threat that is present here. So it's definitely a good outing for Hickman and Weaver, and it's a 4 out of 5 for Avengers number 8. So here we will now talk about one of the other Avengers titles, the other Hickman Avengers title, and that is New Avengers number 4. This is a series that I'm glad they're kind of not just, cranking out. Because this is, it's the series with the Illuminati. So, I mean, we have, in this especially, we're going to have really big science going on here. Because we have, the continuation of them trying to find a solution to this problem of the, kind of these parallel Earths being destroyed. And, that all will advance the, impending doom of our own planet, or, you know what I mean. And, we have all the big brains again. We have Reed, and we have T'Challa, and we have Tony, and, and Hank. I mean, they're all trying to come up with all these different solutions to the problem, and even Stark has kind of co-opted Shire personnel and Shire technology to create this Dyson sphere, or whatever exactly that means. I kind of meant to look it up, but didn't really. And it is something that will effectively weaponize the sun in case it needs to, in case something, if again this incursion of this other Earth, of these other Earths, and whatever is behind all of this does prop up, then they'll be able to use the sun as a weapon against it. And we also have Doctor Strange shockingly taking this book of very, very dark magic called the Bible of Blood. And it is something that is essentially, he knows that if he has to use it, that he is more than likely going to die. And so he even tells Wong, who makes an appearance here, that, you need to kind of live every moment of every day like it's your last, because it probably will be if we can't figure this out. And he even says, I've put I've put more of my estate in order, so, if it comes down to it, Wong will be able to see what needs to happen next, as far as, kind of the next Sorcerer Supreme type of thing. Whatever. I mean, the intention isn't really made clear. It's just that he basically is saying, look, I'm probably going to die. And then even when when all of them, Namor and Black Bolt, kind of join up and everything like that, everybody gets together and meets at Ellis Island, because they can see another one of the Earths just, off of Ellis Island. And their intent is to travel to this Earth and see what indeed see what's going to happen. But and also Hank comes up with the idea of, well, one of them, Reed, somebody comes up with the idea of how if one of these other Earths might also have their own, because you had in the last issue Cap's kind of failure to effectively use the Infinity Gems to stop this threat. And you know, Hank, like I said, one of them comes up with the idea that if one of these other worlds has the Infinity Gems on them, then maybe they can use those. But if somebody does have to use those, then somebody will have to stay behind. So this is basically looking like a suicide mission for at least one of them. Like, at least one of these guys is going to have to die in order to stop what's coming. And, they're not pleased about that, but of course they will do it if necessary. But here's the real kicker, is that once they get to this other world, to see what they can do to explore it and see if it's necessary to stop it and destroy it, they get to the alternate Earth there, and instead of course, a statue, instead of the Statue of Liberty, there is a giant statue of Magneto. And so we think, uh-oh, so this is a world now ruled by Magneto. And that might have been the case, but it's certainly not what's going on right now, because as Black Bolt points out to them, not too far away, looks like in the middle of New York City, Galactus has landed, and Terrax is his herald. And Terrax explains that, this world will be consumed by Galactus, and it will, basically, it's going to do what you want it to do. That he's going to consume the world, and it's going to stop this universe from dying. And it will actually be what, it will stop everything that these guys, have been looking to prevent. But they're heroes. And heroes stop Galactus. Even if it means that this is exactly what they've been kind of planning, is that they will have to sacrifice another Earth just to save their own. And not on the Avengers watch, that's for sure. What was so great about this issue, because it really is, this is an awesome issue of comics. Because this, you get an idea, really for the first time, the stakes. We've got some big science ideas, of course, as per usual. It's Jonathan Hickman. We have some great character work being done here, because there's much more of a tight cast to focus on, as opposed to the Avengers, who are so sprawling and so, there's so many of them that it's hard to kind of keep an eye on. It's hard. Hickman just seems to have the voices of these characters speaking much more clearly than in the main Avengers title. So, we have, of course, Steve Epting doing some fantastic art. And, we just have this awesome cliffhanger here, which is where they do decide that, yes, they are going to try to stop Galactus from consuming this Earth. So it's a huge turning point for these guys in this book, because what they've been planning all along is that they may have to, sacrifice a planet in order to save their own. And now here they are, faced with exactly, like I said, faced with exactly what they've been thinking about doing, and they just determined that, nope, we cannot let this happen. We can't allow another Earth to be destroyed, another Earth to be sacrificed just to save our own. We'll have to think around it, but we don't really get to that point, but that's what's going on in their heads, is that impulsively they know what they have to do is they have to fight. and fight they will. And so I am dying for the next issue of this. This is a hair away from being a pick of the week. It's a 4.5 out of 5. It's a tremendous issue of this book. I'm so much happier with New Avengers right now than I am with the Avengers just as a whole. I mean, this seems to be kind of like my favorite of the Avengers books out right now. So anyway, moving forward, Deadpool number 6. So this is really the finale of the first arc, and comes to a rather surprising conclusion as Deadpool and Shield battle the remainder of the dead presidents, and it's interesting. You know, it again. It's hard to really get into plot when you're talking about a Deadpool book, especially this one, because everything here is so kind of crazed and bizarre and hilarious and fun. But what struck me about this issue is actually kind of the more kind of dramatic moments that this issue carried, because we have Wade Wilson here, who is, you know, definitely kind of, he is on a mission to avenge the death of Agent Preston, and that brings him to fight, you know, of course, Washington, who is the last one, and we see kind of some of the things that happen to the other presidents. Some of them get struck in crosstown traffic. Some of them end up in East LA. And then you have them, of course, on the National Mall, as you know, Washington is getting ready. You know, Washington is getting ready to, you know, bring about the end of the world. And they're in this, and Washington, as well as Eisenhower and one of the other former presidents, are in this, they're in this sphere that basically is kind of, I don't know if they call it like the necrosphere or something like that. It's basically anybody that tries to breach it dies instantly. And Deadpool, of course, is told to stay away, but that's not stopping him. So he basically goes in there after he's just taken out Taft. and Taft has a little rubber ducky with Lincoln's head on it. It's just crazy. It's awesome. But, of course, Taft is huge and fat, and it's just disgusting, but it's hilarious. And, you know, he steps through this kind of necro bubble, whatever, and he seems to die. But there's this female form that kind of brings him back from the brink, and this is when, of course, he's able to get his slayage on with Washington. And, you know, I mean, if nothing else, I mean, this book, while of course being funny and also being dramatic, because we do have, you know, Mike the Necromancer pulling kind of an interesting move as far as Agent Preston is concerned, you know, because her demise happened pretty instantaneously, but then his solution to her death also happens pretty instantaneously, and it's one of those things that, ooh, this is going to make for some interesting reading from here on out. But, you know, Jerry Duggan and Brian Posehn, I mean, they really do bring a lot of the good funny. They, you know, it is packed with pop culture references, which is, you know, I mean, to a big geek, it's always fun. There's a mention of the Black Lodge that's, while they've all been, you know, kind of the evil reanimated versions of themselves, you know, Washington, after he's been beheaded and kind of comes back to his normal self, you know, his head is speaking about this Black Lodge that they were all in. Of course, you know, it's a good shout out to Twin Peaks there. and it's just, that kind of stuff is just, something that really packs this book. I mean, it's not so much so that it's just overwhelming, but it is, just these little references here and there are just make this book even more fun. And, like I said, Moore does, some terrific work on art here, Tony Moore, as usual. And it really, it brings the first arc to a really cool close. Now, again, it's not as out and out hilarious as this book has been. Like I said, it does have some good moments of drama, but it's, I do count on this book to be one of those things that I read every week, and it does make me laugh out loud several times, or every month that it comes out, I should say. And it didn't quite get there. It certainly isn't a perfect issue, but it's a really good issue. So it's a 4 out of 5 for Deadpool number 6. Again, just a really, really solid read, and just a lot of fun, but not as much fun as it has been. So, but that's okay, because it can shift gears, and it shifts gears well. So, speaking of another Marvel Now book that is like, okay, well, how can this writer be putting this stuff out consistently? We have All New X-Men number 9. And, Brian Bendis, of course, who's doing Uncanny X-Men as well, and, he's doing Guardians of the Galaxy, and, he's put out 9 issues of this so far, and here we have Stuart Immonen back on art. Kind of a bummer, because I was really, really loving the work that that David Marquez was doing, but that's okay. So we have basically what I call the OF, or the original 5, have a session in the newfangled Danger Room, which is a danger room that they have, of course, never experienced before, because they just have the one that shoots it has the poles that extend, the machines that come out. It's very simple, in comparison. This is, of course, entirely holographic, holograms and everything like that. And they can program everything, anything that they can think of. And, of course, what they stick them in is they put them up, Kitty puts them into the Danger Room to fight Sentinels in Times Square. And basically, kind of the point of this whole exercise is to show how effective they could be in a situation like this, but how ineffectual they actually are in these combat situations. That they can't seem to coalesce as a team, because they're just kind of all over the place with the situations. That, Cyclops is trying to lead, but he's just not, he can't get to that point. So, really, the best that Kitty can hope for is that, that she can basically teach them to survive, and to coalesce more as a unit. But, of course, during all of this, we have more of kind of Jean acting a little bit, not scary, well, it's a little bit scary, because, obviously she has, her telekinesis has come into, has blossomed pretty incredibly, or telepathy, I should say. And, she's kind of sneaking peeks into Kitty's mind, as we see, but Kitty's been trained to know when someone is actually probing into her head, so she knows how to at least detect it, not necessarily fight it off. But what we have here also is that she also sneaks a peek into Scott's mind and asks the question, who is Mystique? And uh-oh. And this, of course, sets off every alarm bell in the building, as far as, at least as far as Kitty is concerned, because she knows that Mystique is bad news. And then we cut to a scene of Maria Hill bringing Sabretooth into one of the various superhuman prisons. And, it's something that's not on anybody's docket or anything like that. And, of course, it's of course, it's a trap. It's not really Maria Hill. It is Mystique. And she has come with Sabretooth to break out Lady Mastermind, who, of course, much like her father, is, has the ability to, create illusions in people's heads, and does so in a pretty horrifying way. As they escape, she sets upon the SHIELD agents who are trying to stop her escape. She basically gives them glimpses of them being kind of killed and torn apart by almost like these horrific monster, zombie, whatever versions of the Avengers. And it is in this moment where we do get Mystique's kind of true intent here. Is that her intent? She talks to Lady Mastermind about how she once did really care about the mutant cause and everything like that. But you know what? Screw it. The dream is dead. It's over. Let's just use our abilities and make boatloads of cash, because that's what she's all about now. And whether or not she will continue to use some of her more kind of faux idealistic tactics on some other potential recruits is a question for another time. But for right now, all we know is that the threat is growing. And, we do get also scenes with, now Hank and young Warren, again, trying to figure out why the hell they're there. Because they thought that this was, that they were preventing, that their very presence was going to help them prevent a mutant genocide. But they're not seeing any evidence of any kind of genocide that's going on. And Hank, of course, explains to young Warren, that, well, the genocide isn't happening yet. You can step outside, you can still see everything that the world is still spinning on, but what you're really here to do is that you're here because Scott Summers has kind of lost his mind. He's speaking as a revolutionary, and when you get a powerful mutant revolutionary, bad shit for mutants starts to happen. He says that, Hank is not looking for a fight, but if it comes down to it, he will fight for what he knows to be right. And it's not to party, so just shut up. And it is, of course, at this moment back at the mansion that, again, more alarms are set off. In this case, more, not so much in the literal sense again, but we have a lot of awakenings going on here, because who shows up? It's basically time for the old bosses again to meet the new bosses, because Scott and Magic and Emma and Magneto have arrived at the mansion. So I know that we've already had a meeting kind of the young, the young X-Men and Scott Summers, but it was very, 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 very brief. And so where we're going from here, it's really, again, just like, ooh, man, this is kind of a white knuckler here. Again, Bendis uses his time here to give us some more really nice character moments, and introducing these new conflicts, with Mystique, and then but also internal conflicts as well, because you have kind of this issue of trust that's going around with the original five, or with our OFers. And, because Jean seems like she's a little bit not quite there, that she's maybe taking her telepathy a little bit too far, and that, there is a rift that seems to be growing amongst the group themselves, kind of with the exception of Bobby. He seems to be kind of the only one with, his head still squarely fixed on his shoulders, but it's because, Bobby has always been kind of the comic relief of the group, if you will, and that allows him to be more less introspective and more just kind of reacting to the moment. So again, wasn't, Stuart Immonen's art is really, really good here. I mean, there's particularly in some of the pages in which he does have to draw, he draws this beautiful 2-page spread of the Sentinels descending upon Times Square, and you get this, and then you get this page, this splash page of the, the horrifying Avengers and everything like that, and it looks terrific. But again, Marquez just seemed to do this better. Again, it seems like everything is over too quickly, that there's more to explore here, and I get that. It's serialized. It's the comic book. It's serialized, but I just feel that again, this whole price point of the $3.99. I get why a lot of you might not be buying some of these books, because it does feel like we should be getting more for our dollar. And in some cases we do, and of course, I get all the Marvel books for free, unless it's something that I really want to buy, such as, this book is a book that I do collect or that I will be getting the trades of. Daredevil, I've switched from the paper issues to trade on that. Because those are books that I'm going to want to have around and not just refer back to on my tablet or on my PC. Again, I don't, because so many individual issues of this particular book have been so strong, and this is definitely one of my favorite books of the new of the Marvel Now initiative, whatever you want to call it. It is, it's a solid book. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a very solid 4 out of 5, but I just feel like this could have been more. There could have been more. We just could have had more depth going into this issue, as opposed to just kind of like, cut. Where are we going? So, again, that's really my only problem with it, is that it just seems short. Seems too abbreviated. So, Superior Spider-Man number 6. Now, I was scared to open this one up, because not as scared as I was with the last issue, because issue 4 was something that I really thought was just anathema. And the follow-up issue to that wasn't very good either. But we did have at least, it ended on this kind of interesting note, and we have, or actually that was issue 4, that ended with this kind of resurfacing of the Green Goblin. And then we had this, this last issue, which did leave, some questions hanging in the air about what exactly did Octospidey just do. And in this issue, we do get that answer. Yes, he did in fact kill Massacre. So if it wasn't for sure in the last issue, which it seemed to be, but it is definitely for sure now, yes, he did waste him. But we did get these new characters here in these new villains, if you will, in characters of Jester and Screwball, which is basically they are kind of they're pranksters, essentially. They are internet pranksters, and they, their first real prank here is to prank J. Jonah Jameson in the middle of a press conference, in which they do talk about, everything that's kind of been going on with, what happened with Massacre and so on and so forth. And they, they pie him in the face, and they pull down his pants, and, and they, of course, they're putting this all on the internet with, Jester, Jester, has kind of the traditional Jester outfit. Screwball is, a female who has, some kind of, kind of like a helmet cam, if you will, and, it just streams live out on the internet. And, of course, it is kind of funny. But, since JJJ feels so humiliated by these people, he calls in Spider-Man immediately to deal with the fact that he's been humiliated, and instead of, more important things that Spider-Man could be doing, he sends him after, he looks to send them after Jester and Screwball. So, In the midst of that, we go back to Anna Maria Marconi, our little person who is helping Peter kind of get back into, well, helping Otto Peter back into the groove of getting his doctorate. And we see her being made fun of by a couple of jackasses, and Otto sees that as well. And as we see Otto reacting to that, then we finally see Ghost Peter, who is he seems to be kind of locked in Otto's mind sometimes. There are certain events, there are certain things that Otto sees that trigger these memories that Peter kind of falls into and starts to see. And we see, of course, Otto getting picked on, and his glasses getting stepped on and everything like that. And he does, of course, his patrol app with all of his little spiders and everything like that does get to this. He does finally find Jester and Screwball, and then, of course, in the midst of all of this, we do have the Avengers, and they are concerned about the things that Spidey's been doing lately. He does seem a lot more... I mean, because something that Spider-Man has never, ever done before is kill. He's never killed anyone. And they know that something has just been off. So, I mean, the fact that he did kill Massacre really sets off some alarms with a lot of the Avengers that are there. And, Wolverine, of course, he seems to be the one kind of in defense of Spider-Man, saying, who here doesn't have blood on their hands? Especially to, people like, Natasha and, Thor, people that we know that have killed in one way or another. They've ended other lives. Even Cap, to a certain extent. But, what we really have here is that they're more worried than anything else, and then they're saying, well, we'll just keep an eye on Spidey and we'll see how it all pans out. And once he catches up to Jester and Screwball, he does deal with them in a very, very extreme way. And of course, while it's happening, it is being streamed live over the internet. And of course, we do have this reveal, not by Octo Spidey, but by Jester and Screwball in the scene that they have together, in which they do reveal that everybody who actually logs onto their site, they're actually hacking into their IP addresses, and they're getting like their credit card information and all this kind of stuff so that they can make money. So basically, they're thieves. But of course, he sees, Otto definitely is set off by these guys because they do. And this is, of course, where the book starts to really kind of take a really turn, and is where the exact thing that happens in Otto's memory, which is him getting kind of, pushed over and his glasses being thrown on the ground, the kid steps on him, is essentially the same thing that Jester does. They get him in the face with, this kind of super stickum stuff so that he can't see. He has to tear off his... his eyelets, whatever we want to call them, his optics, and then they're stepped on by Jester, and that just triggers, his most base response to this, which is to thrash the living shit out of these guys. And then the Avengers are watching, MJ is watching, everybody's like, this is not Peter. This just doesn't seem like Peter at all. And so the Avengers are saying, yeah, I think it's time we took a little bit of a closer look here at Peter. And so we are getting, and this is, of course, that's, it's, of course, after everything that happens that Peter comes out. So there are a lot of questions that still remain to be answered. Now we have Humberto Ramos returning on art. Doesn't really seem right for him, even though this is kind of a more brightly colored issue, and, we have these more kind of goofier villains. So him being on art here doesn't seem to quite fit, but it is somehow strangely appropriate because the book itself is kind of a rope-a-dope. It is, you know, it is pulling a switcheroo on us all, and because it's expecting us all to believe, yes, this is still Spider-Man, but no, it's not. And so the fact that, you know, because previously we've had Ryan Stegman and, you know, Giuseppe Camuncoli who do darker work. And the fact that, you know, it's Humberto Ramos who, you know, did a lot of the heavy lifting with, you know, with Slott's, you know, Amazing Spider-Man run, and did, you know, a lot of the, you know, brighter, more physical, more dynamic work. And so it is, like I said, it's kind of doesn't work, but at the same time, for the reasons that it doesn't work, it kind of does work. So, but it leaves me to the question: this book is better than, certainly better than the last two issues, but not, again, not as good as it could be, because we have evidence, we have solid evidence of this new Spider-Man being particularly brutal. I do like the character of Anna Maria Marconi because she is almost seemingly maybe a potential kind of love interest for Otto, and that's kind of cool in its own way, because, you know, to give Superior Spider-Man kind of his own supporting cast as opposed to just relying on the Spider-Man supporting cast all the time to be there, just seems a little rote. And it's nice to see that he's getting kind of his own characters here that he can really work with, you know, that Otto is getting his own supporting cast. So that's neat. But again, the question remains is, what the fuck is Peter doing? Why? I mean, is he trapped inside Otto's brain, like, all the time now, and just kind of comes out when Slott needs him as a literary device? Or, you know, because we have no idea what he even feels about Massacre, about him killing Massacre. So, I mean, it demands answers, and they're not asked here. And whether or not this is something that Slott is developing, I just don't know. And frankly, I want to say, I keep wanting to say to myself, you know what, I don't like this book and I want to stop reading it, but it is kind of good sometimes. And I mean, especially with the last two issues, I was this close. And this book, again, it didn't push me over the edge to say, you know what, fuck it, forget it, I'm not reading this book anymore. It did give me a little bit of hope because, like I said, there are some things going on here that I do like. So I gave this a 3.5 out of 5. I think that it's still, that Slott really needs to tighten the screws on the storytelling. But other than that, it's just a very solid issue. So on to our last piece of Marvel here, Daredevil number 24. And, you know, here we have, you know, we have glimpses of the true villain, or villains, who are behind the destruction, you know, the attempted destruction of Matt Murdock. Because we do have, you know, these little, you know, we have, you know, this is the person who's definitely behind Claw and behind Coyote, and behind what we now are referring to as the Wilders, which are basically the replication, you know, these, you know, horrific experiments to replicate Daredevil's, you know, Matt Murdock's initial accident that made him Daredevil. So we do get some glimpses of that at the beginning, so it's really like Wade just is loving to tease us with this, but I mean, there is no, you know, there's no hints at the identity at this point at all, I feel. I know that Ghost Critic, that he seemed to feel like maybe there had been something that had been teased, but not really, I don't think at all. I think there is a lot more going on here that we just don't know yet. And but anyway, moving on. So we find him again. We find Matt again at the bedside of Foggy, who is, he's trying to get some sleep because in the morning he's going to have a pretty invasive biopsy that is going to help determine what kind of cancer that he's suffering from. And because depending upon what it is, there could be a really good chance that he'll survive, or there could be a very, very poor chance that he'll survive. And Matt's just basically kind of, it's not so much that he's not trying to deal with everything else that's going on, but it's just that he really wants to be there for his buddy. And even, because he does actually stop a crime that goes on in the hospital, it's apparent to Foggy that he just can't sit still, and he needs to get out there and do some. If nothing else, he needs to talk to Kirsty McDuffie about the way that they left things. So Matt kind of tracks her down to this gym where she's doing this rock climbing, and he's actually above her. And he's there to kind of end the relationship, but she actually does it first, which is a very strange turn of events there, because usually it's Matt who is kind of doing the dumping, at least in one way or another. Either he's doing something bad, or he's it's usually cheating. He's usually cheating on somebody. That's usually how his story ends. But with women. But here she is. She's saying basically, I don't. Daredevil's life is a big, operatic, dramatic life, and I need to have my own life. And, I can't just be attached to the drama of Daredevil's life. So she kind of, then takes that moment to walk away, and then Matt says to himself kind of, wow, I think I'm in love with this woman. So it's kind of, the turnabout kind of seeming to be kind of fair play as far as Kirsty and Matt are concerned. But then we get Matt again going across town all suited up and everything like that, and he's talking to Hank Pym on the phone, trying to suss out the details about the Wilders. And Hank does indeed confirm that yes, that whoever these people were, based on Daredevil's own blood work, is that yes, they are exposed to the same radioactive chemicals that caused his super senses. And so he goes back to the office, and everything's kind of looking sane, at least as sane as it can get. And that's when the office gets a special delivery, and it's a special delivery of dogs that have been treated with the same, again, the Wilder formula. And he springs into action, and it's actually Hank who actually comes to help kind of clean up the scene and actually miniaturizes the dogs, which I just think is cool. It's also Hank that helps to give maybe a more a more, I can't even think of the fucking word. Just basically helps to give sort of a prognosis on the type of cancer that Foggy may have. And the doctor does reveal that yes, it is. And if caught in time before it really metastasizes, there's a 70% chance of survival. But of course, Foggy wants to know what are the other chances. And of course, the chances for survival if it has metastasized go down to 10%. 10% survival rate. So, and it is, you know, at this time when, you know, we do get this moment where, you know, kind of Foggy is asking Matt, you know, how to teach him how to be without fear for this, you know, for what he's going through. And that's when Matt does get a visitor, and it's one of the Wilders, and he is saying, I know who's behind this, and I can take you to him. Now, of course, this has Trap just stunk all over it. So it'll be very interesting to see where this goes from here. Now, this issue of Daredevil, again, that close to being a pick of the week, because this is just another one of those great issues that Waid and Samney do, that where we get a really, really nice blend of personal life Matt Murdock and superhero life Daredevil, and how they do kind of intersect from time to time. And if nothing else, the one thing that I'm really, really loving about this book also is that this book is bringing in Hank Pym as more of a solid supporting character. Because I get that this is a character that... This was something that I read also on the review on Comic Book Resources, where they were really excited too. And it was literally like reflecting my own thoughts on this, because the fact that it's not bringing like this kind of standard Hank Pym baggage to this supporting role, but that he gets to be featured in something where he does get to be kind of cool. And we do have some really, really neat scenes with him where he's kind of, he's growing really tall to get certain things, and then he has to grow really, and then he has to shrink really small in order to get at certain other chemicals while he's doing his testing in his lab. And we have some fun moments where Matt's kind of making fun of his voice and stuff like that. Like when he shrinks down, he kind of sounds like Mickey Mouse, and it's just to have him here does work really well. The only thing that really kind of halts this book from really being a pick of the week is that it just doesn't seem to have the punch that this book normally has had, at least with the past couple of issues. There's the cliffhanger here is not particularly strong in the sense that, because we know that whatever's going to happen next is just, if it isn't a trap, it's going to go horribly wrong. So it isn't a big reveal or anything like that. There's nothing. I guess that's part of what, just like I said, just edges this off of being a pick of the week, is that because it's a beautifully illustrated book, as always. Chris Samney just doing fantastic work, and I hope that he is an artist that gets a lot more recognition, because I know that yes, the first this series won the Harveys and the Eisners, but that was more for the work of Paulo Rivera, who was recognized as the artist there. And I'm hoping that something similar happens with Chris Samney, because to be perfectly honest, I dig Chris Samney's work more than I do Paulo Rivera's work, because I just love Chris Samney. He's just a fantastic artist. And Waid, he really sells this book well. I mean, he makes this book really solid. So it's 4.5 out of 5, kind of a 4.75 out of 5, and like I said, just kind of missing it by a hair. So now we move to our independent section, and we're first going to talk about Jennifer Blood number 24. Now this is a one-off in which we explore the childhood of Sam Blute, who is Jennifer's father. And we see, his home life and, his brothers, who eventually come to run the Blute crime family. And we kind of see the beginnings of his psychosis and dealing with his father, who came from the old country. Kind of looks like Zangief from from Street Fighter, but just if Zangief were like a Nazi. Because he has all these kind of Nazi tattoos and everything on. This big, burly, fat, disgusting man, and he's actually he actually put his own the more infant son. He's kind of put that son's eye out because that was the mother died in that child's childbirth. So he just kind of took one of his eyes, and just goes to to say what a shitty bunch of brothers that he has, but that Sam is the only one that he sees a spark of hope in for continuing the work of the family and expanding the family's crime hopes, whatever you want to call it. And because he is constantly disrespecting his father. And of course this all comes to a massive head here, where we do get this moment where we do start to see like the psychosis that he is dealing with, because we do see after he kind of throws his father out of whatever floor, landing on the street, presumably killing him, and he sees this, this fire in the sky, as we know that, from previous issues that he's seen in the past. It's unusual for a book like this to take a break like this, especially after the climax of the previous issue, where we see, everything, the whole story of Jen and how she, came to be in prison, and what's just happened to her, that she seems to be kind of dying. That's for this book to jump from that to this, so that is a little jarring as far as the narrative is concerned. But the book still does work, because it does really give us an insight into kind of the violence and the madness that Jen grew up around and kind of grew up with. And is obviously, we're starting to see that reflected in herself. And so it's not a great issue by any stretch of the imagination. It's a good issue, though. It's solid. It's a 3.5 out of 5. But again, it was just kind of a shock to see it go from, because the previous issue was great, and this series has been, by and large, really since Al Ewing took over, has been pretty fucking brilliant. And I think it's one of those things that not a lot of people are getting, but I think pretty much everybody should be getting, especially now. This book probably works better in kind of a more collected, sense. It'll work better in trade than it does just, in a single issue, because of how it disrupts the narrative. But again, it's good. It's a 3.5 out of 5 for Jennifer Blood number 24. So moving on, continuing with Dynamite here, go to The Spider number 10. And again, this is one of my must-reads every time that it comes out, because David Liss just doing such a great job with this kind of with this pulp action hero. As we get to what it opens with, kind of seemingly kind of getting back to business with the Spider, that he's not kind of having to deal with his company and not having to deal with these these crazy pulp characters. He's just getting back to good old-fashioned organized crime. And of course it ends up being something very different, because we have the introduction of the Fly. And the Fly basically sets a couple of death traps for the Spider to fall into by using kind of like crash test dummies, and seals them in a cargo container. The cargo container is thrown into the bay, and while it's sinking and it's filling with water, there's also a bomb in there but he does escape, and what he sees on the news is that this character naming himself the Fly is taken some hostages, and he's actually killed one of them by tying a noose around their neck and then throwing them out the window, kind of Omen style, if you want to call it that. And of course, the Spider has to spring into action. But in the midst of all this, we do get some kind of brief, not flashbacks, but just some recent events that have been going on with Nita, and how she is still really the both of them are having a really hard time dealing with the fact that they did sleep together, and that she really does love him, that she is his true love, and not her husband, the Commissioner of Police, Stanley Kirkpatrick. So, and that's also happens to be one of Richard Wentworth's best friends. So it's like, how does so these things around him are starting to kind of fall apart. But then then we also have Detective Hilt, who just has a major hard-on for taking down the Spider, and says no matter what, even though the police commissioner has said, Hilt asks, how can we keep working with this guy? He's a criminal, he's a killer. It's like, what do you think a confidential informant is? I mean, these are people that we release, that we've captured and that we release, and they're criminals, and they still get to commit crimes, but they're doing it kind of for the greater good, if you will. So, but even Hilt is saying, what, if you guys get a shot, take out the Spider. So, the Spider gets to the Fly, and instead of being some villain with some garish, outfit or anything like that, he's just a dude with, glasses and a bow tie and, suspenders. I mean, he just looks like kind of a nerd, if you will. But, and as we see that he's been inspired by the Spider to be like him, but only, evil. And, we do see that he definitely, because the woman that he appeared to throw out of the window again was another dummy. But as the Spider arrives, just, he says basically in a display of non-squeamishness, I'm going to show you that I am definitely not to be fucked with. And then he does have one of his henchmen put a bullet in one of the hostages. And this is when the Fly challenges him to a sword fight. He grabs, two swords, fencing swords, whatever you want to call them. Can't fucking remember. Sabers, whatever you want to call it. And, but the Shadow is not afraid to fight dirty. And of course, he does do just that, and he, uses one of his gizmos to kind of, tase the Fly and blows away the henchman, but the Fly himself is back up in a snap, and he, kicks Spider up against the wall, and there's this, massive adhesive that the Spider is stuck to, and even though the Fly has the opportunity to deliver a killing blow to him, he says, well, you know what, I'm not going to kill you because that's just going to make a martyr out of you. That's going to inspire more people to take your place, and that's just going to be, it's going to be bad business all around for me. So I think just the fact that you're here and that the cops are coming probably any moment now, and, being the fact that I've just, totally humiliated you and they're going to find you humiliated, that's pretty much going to wrap up your vigilante career. So let's just end it at that. And then the Fly he splits. And he does manage, the Spider, of course, does manage to free himself before all the cops get up there. But, and then as he's walking away, it's like, this guy is willing to kill innocent people. He's willing to do it just to humiliate me. I'm going to find out who the Fly is, and when I do find him, I'm going to kill him, and then I'm going to kill him again. So this guy has really gotten onto Richard Wentworth's radar in a really bad way. So, and that's where we wrap up. And one of the things that is really cool about the fly, but also, and again, this is another one of those things that keeps it off from being one of the picks of the week, is that he seems like just kind of a more physical version kind of the Joker. But he is very much the Spider's opposite number. He does, obviously has brains, he has brawn, he has money, because he even talks about the fact that, it's like, when he says to the Spider, you're not the only guy with an R&D department, when he talks about the adhesive that he's used to capture or to hold the Spider in place. But that he is all of these things, but he's just basically, he's the evil part of, he's the yin to the Spider's yang. It's like they are both very similar in every department, except that the Fly is just a little more than just good old-fashioned insane. So this is a guy who's not really kind of edging to be any kind of super duper, wants to take over all the crime and, in the city or anything like that. He just really just wants to kind of continue doing what he's doing. And, so there's no big payoff here as far as, monetarily. It's just the opportunity for him to meet and to best who he feels to be kind of his equal. David List doing, again, just another really, really tight issue of, good action, good dialogue, good character moments. Ivan Rodriguez doing some more really, really good art. Again, still missing Colton Worley, but that's okay. I'm getting over it because he's been off it for quite a few issues now. But more than anything, it's just we have such a nice, good pulp title here, and this is it's always a great read. It's always like I said, it's almost right at the top of the pile every month that it comes out. The week that it does come out, it's just one of those things I'm aching to read, and this is no exception. This is a 4.5 out of 5, absolutely, for the Spider number 10. So on to Valiant and Exo Manowar number 11, the beginning of Planet Death. And basically we begin with the origins of the Vine as a species, and we see how that once upon a time their home planet was a paradise, and there was harmony and peace and everything like that. And we see that then this group of alien being, this other group of alien beings called the Torment, came to their world and just made it a living hell. And that they were punished, they were forced to work, the toil for them, and the Torment could just absorb they're just kind of like these huge black kind of gooey monstrous beings, and they just kind of absorb people into their being, and of course they're huge and everything like that. And then everything of course seems lost for the Vine as a race until one who kind of escapes the reach of the Torment gets to the Hara Vine. And the Hara Vine sprouts a gleaming metallic orb, and this orb, of course, becomes the Shanhara armor. And it is that first user that then dispatched the terrors of the Torment, and then helped establish the Vine as a race once again. Was able to bring them back from extinction. Well, so that the armor itself, whoever wields it, is considered to be kind of a god by the priests of the planet. But the armor has come back to the Vine's homeworld, and it is bringing all fucking hell along with it. You know, it is definitely, you know, behold the pale horse, and he who sits upon him is death, and hell followed with him. And it is just, you know, massive destruction. It is just, you know, Eric is taking out everybody that he sees, and everybody, you know, every building, every ship, everybody, just wasting them all. Even the ones that are kind of, even the priests were kind of praising his return. And, you know, he finally does get to the one priest who's kind of been telling the story, as we see, and, you know, he's talking about, you know, basically whatever the will of Shanhara is what we will accept. So, you know, Eric has said, you know, I have come to, you know, you will see yourself be conquered. You know, that would be the last thing that you will see, is you will see this world conquered by me. And then the priest, you know, says, well, you know, if you intend to, you know, destroy our world and conquer it, then what will become of the Visigoths who remain? So this puts a little bit of a crimp in Eric's plans to destroy everything, to destroy the Vine's home planet. What we see here, what Robert Venditti brings to this character for the first time, really, is that we get to see that Eric is not really a good guy. He's not a hero. He is, and is someone who we have seen pretty much up until now being put in these constant defensive positions and defensive postures. But here we have him, it is a full-on onslaught. He wants to completely leave it just scorched earth. He wants nothing standing, nothing remaining. He wants to kill everybody because of what they've done to him and his people, and the sacrifice that Gaffney had to make in the previous issue. And it brings a new element to the character where we get to say, I'm actually a little bit uncomfortable kind of rooting for this guy, because he is kind of indiscriminately killing everybody that he comes across. Because, you know, they do kind of, you know, the race of the Vine, they do kind of look horrifying, and they obviously have done horrifying things, but everybody on that planet is not, you know, they can't be all bad. But that doesn't seem to bother Eric. He is a conqueror, and he wants to destroy this planet. He will do whatever he needs to do. But now that, of course, this little wrench has been thrown into his plans, then, but just to see this kind of shift in him, to see him as someone who will come and just do whatever the hell he feels that he needs to or wants to do. It's just, it was really kind of, it was not particularly shocking, but it just made you a little bit like, ooh, because we've never, the book has never said, well, this guy is, you know, he's a hero, and he needs to, you know, and, you know, he's going to, you know, strike a blow for the oppressed everywhere. No, he is a warrior, and he has no real conception of the responsibility that a hero would otherwise have. He is just looking to cause, he's just looking to cause a lot of trouble for the Vine as a race. So, you know, Carrie Nord, again, doing some really, really nice work on art. It was a really fascinating issue to read, and, you know, just, of course, you know, again, it does make you a little bit uncomfortable while you're reading it, and I think that's done with very specific purpose. So I have to say, again, this was another book that was close. It's a 4.5 out of 5 for Exo Manowar number 11, the first chapter of Planet Death. So moving on to DC. And we'll start with Wonder Woman number 18. So basically we have Wonder Woman versus Hermes for the, as they fight for the fate of Zola's baby. And we do get, in the midst of this, we see, you know, of course, that Hermes really feels that he's kind of been betrayed by all of his brothers, that he, that the smith, has fashioned weapons for her to fight with, and that war has sent him there. And, so many of the other gods of Olympus have kind of abandoned Hermes to his own devices. And so, the fight reaches, a solid fever pitch here. And just when the chips kind of seem down, that's when we have, boom! Here comes Orion. And to kind of pull Diana's, not that she was necessarily in need, but she just needed a bit of a leg up. And he's there to provide that. And he actually explains the reason that he slapped her on the ass in the previous issue is that DNA. Is that if he was able to, get any of her skin on his, then he could just kind of feed it into his, boom bike, if you will, and it will follow wherever it goes. And then in the midst of this, rather epic action sequence, then we have these moments between War and Demeter. And Demeter is kind of, as we see, is it's kind of like Gaia, if you will. It's kind of like a, kind of the goddess of the earth. And, her kind of physical representation is that of, a woman who is like this, she's kind of made from, like vines and wood and, leaves and everything like that. And War, has, they have this conversation about how just, kind of bored he is just with all the fighting and all the, all the just insanity that's going on up top. And he, kind of wants everything to return to the status quo. And of course, in the midst of that, we have the firstborn fighting against Poseidon. And which is where the book does kind of start to, like, where the hell are we going? What's going on here? It's like there seems to be, it seems to be too much maybe going on for one issue. Now, that's normally something that I wouldn't necessarily complain about, because it is, you do feel like you're getting more bang for your buck, but at the same time, it just seems like they are a little bit too hasty to wrap this arc up. And so I just feel like they sped through some stuff here. We have kind of, the firstborn's, seems to be, I think, his helper, the woman that got him out of the ice and everything like that, is, I think that we see her drown. But in the midst of this, we see that Demeter is actually holding, that Hermes doesn't have the baby, that Demeter actually does, and that War has come to, she's actually holding it inside of her belly, and he kind of rips open the, the kind of, stalks and wood and everything like that, and branches and everything like that to grab the baby out. And she can't fight him off. And that's when Wonder Woman and Orion together do defeat Hermes by crippling him. It does, it's like, just War just basically kind of betrayed us all, and she's, thinking about what a fool she was to trust in War. And Orion kind of tries to give her a little bit of a pep talk, and it's interesting to see the character of Orion be kind of a, he seems to be, wants to be kind of maybe a ladies' man a little bit. And there's just, he's like a man's man type of guy. He's a little bit, maybe a little bit too macho for for Diana. But we have that War, when she does return to Zola and, Hera and, all the other gods of their strife and everything like that, we do see that War has indeed returned. the baby to Zola. So it wasn't something that he did that was bad, per se. It was something that actually appears to be good. So we're left with the aftermath of that. It's like, well, was this a good thing or was it not? I don't know. We don't know what War's plans are. So, uh, again, because there is so much, the book does seem to, the narrative does get a little scattered because there is so much going on in this issue in Azzarella's attempt to really wrap this up. And we do have a lot of art changes here. There's a couple of different artists that are working on this issue, like Tony Akins, Cliff Chang, and this other artist who does most of the work in the issue, actually. But it never, the transitions seem to be pretty seamless. So it was never like, oh, well, that's a different artist, and this is a different artist, and this is a different artist. So, it's, like I said, it's also a question of, I do find myself asking the question, if the Firstborn really is, I mean, because he seems to be the real threat here, and not Zola's baby, because, Orion did actually come to destroy the child, because, of the, all the prophesizing and everything that's been going on throughout the series. So, it is, he's kind of glad that he doesn't have to, and they're just kind of enjoying, at the end here, kind of just being with the baby again. And everything seems a-okay. But again, we still have this lurking threat of the, of the Firstborn, and that he seems to be the one that's kind of destined to destroy everything. So whether or not that will come to pass, or maybe something different will happen with the baby, we don't know. But I can definitely say that, at least as far as a book, the quieter moments, particularly the scene between War and Demeter, works very, very well. But, like I said, the action sequence, the fight between Hermes and Diana is nicely epic and very well done. It's only when the Firstborn, when it's cross-cut to that it kind of loses focus. So, but it's still a solid issue. I was happy with this issue. I was happy with the way that it turned out. It's a soft 4 out of 5, kind of edging a little bit more towards 3.5. But it could have been better. But it was definitely a good read. Constantine #1. So basically, we have Ray Fawkes, Jeff Lemire working together. As the co-writers of this issue, and then Renato Guedes doing the art, basically bringing us the new the solo adventures of the new 52 John Constantine, who basically, just to sum it up real quick, because I don't want to talk about this issue for too long. Basically we have John kind of walking around talking, and we have his inner monologue about the price that magic, costs, because, nobody comes out of it clean. The darker that you get, the more that you get into it, the more that you have to lose, and the worse that it can get. So we do have, he takes this young psychic, or imbued with magic, whatever, called Chris, and he uses him to help find this magical artifact, this compass that is broken up into 3 individual pieces, and he is looking to retrieve it before, because we have the resurgence here of the Cult of the Cold Flame. And they end up going to, and this kid, of course, he's very nervous and everything like that, and he is set upon by an assassin on the plane from London to, they have to go to Norway to one of those ice hotels and everything like that, of course. And that's where Sargon the Sorceress appears. Now, not Sargon the Sorcerer, but Sargon the Sorceress, and she wants what he's come for, this part of this compass, and she is torturing the young Chris to get what she wants, but Constantine true to form, sacrifices Chris in order to get away with this part of the compass, keeping it away from the cult of the cold flame, because Sargon sorceress is part of these members of the cult of the cold flame. So basically it is revisiting the idea that yes, John Constantine is a huge dickhead. And that's the problem, is that while the art is really terrific, Renato Guedes does a terrific job on art, it is, unfortunately, this is a oft-told tale. And it just makes me wonder, why in the fuck did they cancel Hellblazer? Because this is just, you know, this is the softened, this is the watered-down version of Hellblazer. No matter how dark and compelling that Ray Fawkes and Jeff Lemire try to make this, it's still tales we've seen told, and we've seen them told better when it comes to this character. So this, to me, it just grated on me, and it's definitely something that I won't be picking up again. But I figured, you know, it's Constantine, it's Ray Fawkes, it's Jeff Lemire, might as well give it a try. So Jeff Lemire is starting to feel, again, he's starting to seem a little bit more overextended, which is why I'm assuming that Fawkes is really kind of taking the lead here. But, you know, if we hadn't seen this story told a million times before about John Constantine and what you know, what a dick he is, then, you know, even if he's a dick for the right reasons, he's still a dick. You know, it's really old hat. So 2.5 out of 5 for Hellblazer, or I'm sorry, Constantine #1. Batwoman #18. So here we have kind of the preface to what I'm assuming has to be the eventual confrontation between Batwoman and Batman. We have, basically, it opens up with Batwoman, again, still working with the DEO, and we have also Firehawk, formerly Flamebird, also known as Bat-Cane, who is there to kind of, you know, basically, as, you know, we see her kind of coming into her own as kind of like a cool sidekick character. And they are taking on Mr. Freeze. And here's where Batman pops in after, basically, kind of just after they've finished fighting them, or the two of them have finished fighting and defeating Mr. Freeze. And, you know, there are references to, you know, the kind of new origin, the new 52 origin of Mr. Freeze here. And that, you know, Batman has basically come, you know, he's really, really not too keen on what Batwoman is doing, that, you know, the fact that she is in bed with the DEO, and, you know, that he's come to basically get Freeze's freeze gun, because so that he can work to develop countermeasures from it. And of course, she's been sent by the DEO to get the same technology. So already we sense that there is a confrontation looming between these two characters. And, you know, because we've already seen a Batgirl and Batwoman fight, so let's have Batwoman and Batman, you know, get it on, but not in, of course, in that way, because, you know, there would have been more of a chance of that with Batgirl. Anyway. And then we had, you know, and then, so, you know, to put an end to this dispute that they have, basically, you know, Batwoman breaks the freeze gun into a number of pieces and says, "Yeah, we'll just split it." And then she splits with Firehawk, and then we have you know, Director Bones meeting with Chase, and, you know, we're introduced to this new psych ops agent who is, you know, who's given more of a you know, kind of there to give more of a psychological breakdown of Batwoman and her attitudes and things like that, and how they can best utilize her. And basically, Director Bones' idea is that he's going to put these, he's going to put Batman and Batwoman into, in his own words, going to put these two weasels in a bag and see which one emerges. So, because Batwoman's just her, defiance of authority and apparent distaste for any authority, models of authority, figures of authority. And then we have some more personal moments between where we get to look at Maggie, who's doing some real estate hunting. She is looking for a place that she can live with Kate, but it can also be kind of a headquarters for Kate. And then we also have Jacob kind of coming back home, and he's wondering where everybody is, and his wife, ex-wife, some woman that he was married to, is married to something, I don't know. But again, I guess I'm just not as up on the mythology of this character as I should be, because it was always my impression that Batwoman's mother was dead. So I don't know if this is a woman that he married afterwards. I don't know, but she's there to kind of lecture Jacob about the fact that he might end up getting both Kate and Bet killed, because she knows that he's still assisting them. He's doing much more assisting of Bet right now, because she's still kind of getting her legs under her as far as being a hero again. And basically we see kind of the new plan, the party crasher, whoever that is, that's going to be coming to kind of really set a fire under Batwoman's ass, so to speak, and get her to basically choose a side. And that's kind of where we leave it off. And now, I've never been a huge fan of the way that this book is written. I've never thought the storytelling was really that solid, but the one thing that always brought me back was the fact that J.H. Williams, whenever he was on art, it looked awesome. So when you have Trevor McCarthy stepping in, because we know that J.H. Williams is going to be doing his upcoming series with Neil Gaiman for, kind of bring Sandman back, and I can't wait for that. But it is, he and Blackman have never really been great writers, and Trevor McCarthy, he's no J.H. Williams. I mean, even though he does keep a lot of the same motifs as far as the two-page spreads, and the really kind of interesting panel construction and everything like that, and everything kind of looking like the bat emblem and everything like that. That's kind of old hat by now. So it's just something that, but we are treated to some single pages every now and then, where we get some very kind of standard panel construction. And that's where, of course, this book, the standard that's been set by this book is so high artistically that it's hard to get on board with anybody else. So I gotta say, I mean, it's a good read. I'm really more interested with where this book is going than where it is. But it's a good read, and of course, I can't say that Trevor McCarthy is a bad artist by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just in comparison, obviously the two don't line up quite so well. So a 3.5 out of 5 for Batwoman number 18. Again, a good read, but just not great. So now on to the picks of the week. I'm going to try and get through this so you're not sitting through another 2-hour video, or that exceeds 2 hours. So first pick of the week, there are two, and one does definitely edge out the other. Technically there are three, because we talked about Brian K. Vaughan and Marcos Martin's The Private Eye earlier last week. So we know that was one of my picks of the week, and it was going to be one of the picks of the week. So that's done. We know that. If you haven't seen my review of that, please go to that video and take a look. You also see Damien, or Sleepy Reader 666's his own video on that subject. So definitely check it out, because that's he's got some really interesting things to say about that book as well. But our two picks that we'll be talking about now. First start, the runner-up really is well, I mean, technically the Private Eye is kind of the runner-up here, but so I guess whatever. The second runner-up is Harbinger number 10. So basically we have Peter working with Faith once again, because he's all sorts of fucked up, but it's, you know, Faith who kind of comes to his rescue again, and, you know, tells him to, you know, because he's got, you know, electrodes and everything like that hooked up to his head to stop his psychic abilities from being used. And so we've got all that going on, and basically, you know, he's working with Faith to help free Chris and Charlene and Torkelson from whatever fate awaits them back at PRS's headquarters, whatever their plans are for them. So it's hard to really run down the events in this book, because it is awesome. I mean, it's like super badass stuff that Peter goes through once he basically gets everybody in, you know, his clutches, and shows, you know, the bad guys just how powerful he really is, and that PRS, you know, they are definitely going to have some major problems when the Harbinger Wars come down. But once everybody is rescued and Charlene is able to learn how to use her own power in a way that she didn't think about before, which is, you know, landing from, you know, basically a free fall from a helicopter several hundred feet in the air. And it's kind of Chris that kind of helped her through that. And it is the main thing that struck me about this issue is how incredibly emotional it was to get back into Peter's mind and to see what exactly he's gone through. Because there was a lot of time spent in this issue kind of lamenting the loss of Joe, because Joe was kind of his anchor to the world, and how, you know, because we do get this kind of ongoing inner monologue from him about, you know, why is he doing this? Why is he involved these other people in this, you know, in this struggle? You know, is it just to impress Chris? Is it because he's so angry at everything? Is it because he's an addict? I mean, because, you know, he was, you know, when this all started, he was popping pills like crazy. And, you know, so, I mean, it's so striking to see him kind of come to terms with a lot of these things that have happened, and to actually start being someone who is just not just thinking of himself, and he's thinking about these other people and what they're going to have to go through now that they are renegades from PRS. And, you know, he basically tells them, look, the first thing that he says to them when he has them all assembled after their rescue, whatever you want to call it, is how sorry he is. And that he tells them that, look, you know, you can all go your own way after this. You do not have to follow me. You know, you all have your own lives that you can live from here on. So, you know, you don't have to follow me on what I have to do, which is to stop the Harbinger Foundation. And, of course, you know, when it comes right down to it, we do see, you know, Chris emerge wearing one of the Harbinger Institute's uniforms that Faith had grabbed. And, so do the others, and they're all wearing, Harbinger Foundation uniforms, and they are all on board with what Peter has to do next. So it was kind of the realization, is Peter really coming to this realization that he is responsible for all these other people's lives, and that he can't just pretend it's all about him, and that there are a lot of problems that he has to work through, and he doesn't necessarily want to do it alone, but he will if he has to, if he can just make sure that these other people will remain safe and kind of out of the insanity that his life has become. So, I mean, just that, I mean, Joshua Dysart has, with this issue, he's really coalesced this book into something that is truly one of the best books that's out there right now. This is just, Harbinger, as I sent, and I wanted to do this, honestly, with a lot of you, because I know that a lot of you aren't reading the Valiant titles, but, I sent Mark, Ghost Critic, a copy of the first Harbinger trade, and I'm very glad that you liked it. I'm super psyched that you were on board with it. I'm glad you'll be getting it in trade, because this is definitely the best thing that Valiant's is putting out right now, and this issue is a perfect example of why it is so great. Is because there are a number of artists that work on this issue, but there was no moment at all in the entire issue where I felt, okay, well, now the artist has definitely changed here, and now it's changed here again, and now it's changed here again. So no, there never is that moment where, I mean, it's like you really have to look and really look to see the differences between some of these different artist styles. And it's really not that different, which works very much to the book's benefit, because if those transitions had been jarring, it would have really taken me out of the book, but it didn't at all. And even if it were slightly jarring, it would have spoke. I don't think I would have felt that much differently about it, because that really speaks to how powerfully Dysart wrote this issue. So this is it's a brilliant issue of comics. It's an absolute, it's a real gem. I mean, this book has been a diamond in the rough pretty much from the get-go, and I could not recommend it more highly if you were looking for another book to pick up. So I know that a lot of you are dropping books because the books are expensive, but if you're looking for stuff out there, definitely give Harbinger a look, because the first trade is out, so I'm hoping that you'll be picking it up. And so, yes, 5 out of 5 for Harbinger number 10. Absolutely, this was a great issue. But on to the very pick of the week, and I was surprised at some of the other people's reviews that I've seen. They're a little bit lower than I would have expected, but a absolute 5 out of 5 for Saga number 11. Basically, Saga number 11, we have some of the most concise work and one of the most perfect examples of who Brian K. Vaughan is as a writer, because we do have him opening this book in a very unexpected way, which is Alana and Marco getting it on. I mean, getting it on. And, she's a little bit taken aback by the fact that he has spent inside of her. And she's like, whoa, what the hell did you do? And he's kind of taken aback by this because of some of the things that she said in Flagrante Delicto. And, how she, I mean, just, there's some wonderful kind of post-coital talk there, and how, you know, the responsibility of bringing a child into this world would be, and you know, how you know, Marco does feel that their child is, you know, is proof that there can be coexistence between those from land, you know, those from Landfall and those from Wreath. So, and you know how Alana talks about how sexy Alana is crazy. You know, you should never listen to sexy Alana. You know, that she uses the word dick unironically. And just, you know, this is the type of stuff that I live for from Brian K. Vaughan. And then we cut to, of course, the present, in which they are, you know, they are escaping, trying to break free of the orbit of this, you know, hatching of this giant planetoid. And the fact that that it's starting to look that, you know, the ship that attacked them looks like it got pretty beat up. And, you know, and even Isabel is saying, well, it's, you know, kind of a shitty way to go. But, you know, Lana doesn't really feel that. But we as an audience feel that, because who went cruising out of the hole in the spaceship but Lying Cat? And to Brian K. Vaughan, if you're listening out there, thank you for fixing that. Because those of you who haven't read it by now, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. Yes, Lying Cat has been saved. Thank you, Brian K. Vaughan, for not killing Lying Cat. Because massive emotional pain I would have inflicted on you for that. That was overstepping your boundaries, good sir. I don't care if you created these characters. You don't have the right to kill them without my say-so. Especially Lying Cat. Anyway, so as they look to break free of the orbit, and Will has saved Lying Cat, and that Marco's father, Bar, is about to say something to him as they try to do what they can to get free, you know, to get away from the breaking up of this planet. And so they take, you know, the helmets that they use for their, you know, the helmets that Marco's parents have used for their kind of magical transportation, and he basically dumps them into kind of the engine of the ship, so that it will, you know, that the thrust will allow them to break free and to get away from the planet, and also from the Will and Gwendolyn and Slave Girl and Lying Cat. But the problem being is that the ship can't hold together with this acceleration. And so his father, Bar, uses his weaving skills to hold the planet together, to hold the ship together as they make their escape. And it is in this moment that he makes basically his final sacrifice for his family. And we are left with all the feels from that. And we have this flashback to when Marco was a child, and he's basically, it seems like he's being taught to kind of, you know, very father-son type of thing, or, you know, parent-child bonding in just something like learning how to ride a bike. But in this case, it's a space grasshopper that's huge. But we, as, you know, Earthlings, as humans, we understand this from the most basic, you know, areas of our memories and our hearts, is when, you know, we were being taught how to ride a bike, and that yes, that eventually, you know, you're going to fall, but you're going to have to get back up, and you're going to learn to ride the thing. But when you learn how to ride it, it's going to be awesome. And that's what Marco sees in his head when he sees his father dead. And it really just, it kind of devastates you. It really does. And this is just one of those shining examples of how awesome this book can be. Because it takes these experiences that are happening in the far-flung reaches of outer space, in distant future, distant past, whatever time period it's supposed to be taking place in, and we don't care because it is, everything that Vaughn writes is so human, it's so universal in the experiences that he brings to us, and it is magical. It really is magic what he and Fiona Staples have been able to do with Saga. It's why this book is at the very top of, you know, every time that I get my books of the week, this is the one that I read first. And it's usually the one that I read second and third and fourth and fifth and sixth, because it's so awesome in almost every issue, and this issue is certainly no different. I mean, Fiona Staples, her art, again, you know, we have this, you know, moment of sex at the beginning, but it's not, it looks like this was fun sex. This does, you know, it's not pornography, it's not meant to titillate or anything like that. It is just fun, healthy couples sex. And that's, you know, and I always like to see sex in a book. Hey, the more graphic, the better. Unless it's like bad sex, in which case that's no good. But good sex is always good. But I mean, wow. I mean, you know, just, I mean, these two are really one of those, you know, kind of, never even heard of Fiona Staples until this book came out, and I just want her to do a lot more books now, which is pretty much the way that I feel about everybody who's worked with Vaughn. You know, Marcos Martin, also obviously now working together with him right now, but you know, Pia Guerrera from Y, Tony Harris, you know. Obviously, we've seen his work elsewhere, so, and we've seen it before that, so that wasn't really much of a new discovery. But you know, Adrian Alfona, who did Runaways, someone I haven't seen a lot of lately, but I don't know, maybe I'm not looking. But you know, Fiona Staples definitely someone that I'm going to be looking out for in the, you know, in the future. Definitely somebody who's going to be on one of those tops of the list of really great artists. And first, you know, Vaughn, he's the fucking man right now. You know, it's like there's him, and there's Snyder, and there's, you know, Brubaker, and you know, it's just, you know, a lot of these people, they just can't do wrong. But Brian K. Vaughan is the least wrong. You know, he's the best of, I think, all of the not wrongdoers right now, especially with these two series that he's got going on right now. So he's going to give Scott Snyder a real run for his money, as far as being my favorite author. But just an absolutely brilliant issue of this book, you know, and an absolute 5 out of 5. So that's it. I know we're over 2 hours. I'm going to just leave you again with thought. I got some of your recommendations, the 2 people that left recommendations on last week's video for books that I should be reading. So I will be getting to those soon, and I will talk about them, and I'll be reading them and seeing if these are books that I will want to continue to read. So far, my recommendations from Scott and Ben, respectively, have been Conan the Barbarian, the current Brian Wood series, and Jason Aaron's Thor: God of Thunder. So I'll be checking those out. And like I said, so that is now your turn. You know me, you've been watching me. Unless this is your first time here, in which case, hello, nice to meet you. Please subscribe. And comment below. Tell me what books you think that I should be reading. If you think that there's a book out there that I'm just missing out on completely, then let me know. And whatever book that I read, and that I feel is going to be a book that I will continue to, that I'll either go back and get the early issues of. It has to be a current series. It's preferable that it's near the beginning so that I'm not too far gone, but it can be something that's just ongoing that I can kind of get into. So whoever gives me the recommendation of a book that is ultimately going to be one of the books that I will continue to rate and to discuss and to critique in these vlogs will get a really cool prize from me. So yes, it's contest time again. So let's get on that, people. Comments below. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter. It's at Donnelly92274, spelled just as my name is here. Follow if it's your first time, subscribe, comment, criticize, complain, recommend. That's what I'm looking for here, people. Interaction. That's what the community is all about. So I thank you again for watching and sticking with me, and for listening if you're listening on iTunes. Thank you for all of this. Thank you for sticking with me for so long. Sticking with me for so long. And we're going to wrap it up right now. So again, thank you again for watching and listening. This is James Donnelly saying good night from the Shadow Gallery and reminding you, as always, to stay in the shadow.